Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to the show. Welcome to this YouTube channel and podcast led by Franz, Sidney. This is Create with Franz. We want to help you to create the life that you want. But guess what? Nowadays, it can be a little bit difficult because the rules of the games are changing. And so we might be super qualified, PhD, masters, 20 years in our field, and we're like invisible. We send all these resumes and they don't get open. We are just don't understand what's going on here. Who changed the rules? So I've been interviewing for a couple of last 2 months all the experts, CEOs, recruiting people, everyone who knows who is the gatekeeper to understand what we can do to become relevant again. You might be 30, just coming out of university. You could be 50. You might relocate and realize, why am I not getting where I want to be? And it's really about positioning yourself sometimes, And so James Wilkson is with us to talk about this. So let's say, first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Such a delightful person. I love your energy, and I love how you care so much about people.
I do. And that's why I've been 5.5 years on this podcast, trying to get people to really change. It's all about mindset. Sometimes you think, oh, the situation is impossible. Okay. The situation is what it is. We cannot change the outside, but we can change the inside. So that's why I work with the mind and NLP, hypnosis, what are they for? To remove these obstacles that might make us feel like we're not good enough, we can't make it. But James is here to tell us otherwise. And we want to see why all these brilliant and experienced people are suddenly feeling they are invisible. How do we fix it? So let's start with this. Who are you? What do you do? Why are you good at this? And how are you going to help the people?
Fair enough. So let me take the first minute or two just to kind of walk you through me. My name is James Wilkson. I get involved in the executive search business at a uniquely young age. So I started over 30 years ago. I'm I hate to say it, if you include my college years, I'm not quite to 40 years, but I'm getting there. And what drew me to the sector had a lot to do with a particular professor I had. I was involved in a communications organizational planning as well as psychological organizational studying of corporate world or the corporate life. And so at the University of South Florida, where I went to school, it was a kind of a specific degree within the communications department, and kind of blended interpersonal comm with just heart and soul of humans, empathetic nature. A lot of study before EQ was really a thing. It's always been a thing, but I was really lucky early in my career to witness that. And as a young mind, even going back before that, I always found what drove human nature, what makes them think and feel and understand what they want. I was always fascinated with that. I considered going into counseling. I considered therapy. I considered a lot of different routes at the time. And a professor kind of planted in my mind, there's a whole world out there where you can apply this process. And he also had me take a few more classes in my senior year that were very related to this. So my expertise really became built around, as an executive search consultant or as a headhunter, it was built around taking that into the work world, into why companies decide who they are going to choose, the mistakes they make, the successes they make, why people choose to leave a perfectly good environment when I contact them and decide they're going to go to an environment that may or may not be better. It better be better. That's my job. The point is, through that process, I've learned over and over and over again, just like I'm learning right now, what companies are doing right and wrong in the way they hire, in the way they let people go, in why they have a retention problem. It's, and it all always boils down to the same thing. 3 things, really. One, I've heard people say salary. Salary is really the bottom line. But what's interesting about that? Salary are dollars, profit are dollars. So companies sometimes make decisions not based so much on what's good, but on what that bottom line needs to look like. So the first thing somebody has to say in this environment, and I'm going to jump through a couple hoops here, is if you were one that unfortunately went through a loss of a job, and you're sitting in a corner somewhere saying, what could I have done better? Well, yes, you should do a little self-assessment. Was I putting enough? Did I do enough effort? But if you have, which many times is the case, you have to look at it as it's not really fault at all. It's just where we've landed. A company makes a change because they need to make the shareholders happy. A company thinks AI, which we're going to jump into later, will solve everything, which it won't, by the way, and so forth. So we will get to that a little later. The third thing I've learned about people when this first happens is the polarization, the freezing of what do I do now? And I'm going to talk later, if I can remember, about the way you should go through your life anyway. But now you're being forced to think differently. And there are lessons you can learn looking back, and there are things that you can do now to get noticed and to get seen. And a lot of these things you've heard before, they're written everywhere. Everybody talks about them. The difference is I can a little bit speak to what is effective and what isn't. And that doesn't mean you do certain things and don't. It's just you have to change your expectation. You can't allow what you're doing to make you feel like that didn't work, so there must be something wrong with me. There's not. It's just the door at that moment in time didn't get open. So my object today will be to talk a bit about how to open doors and how to handle this crazy pain and suffering we're all going through. So I'll let you go if you, because I could talk nonstop. Go.
It's brilliant. Just keep going. I'm all ears.
Great. All right. Wonderful. So there were some preliminary things I kind of set up going into this. And one of those is, why do experienced professionals feel stuck or overlooked? Even if they've got all the credentials, as you mentioned, or even if they're well qualified. And some of it boils down to laziness in the world. Systems within employment systems now almost all have these built-in keywords that create the ability for a resume to rise to the top. So yes, you are going to read, what should I do? Well, one of the things you do need to do is understand the role you're applying for, and if you can get a hold of its specific application. Sometimes that's public right on the website, what they're looking for. Knowing the job, it's time for you to make sure you insert the words that they're stupid, silly AI tools or just sequencers go through and look for and locate, because if they don't see them, you're not going to wind up on top of the stack, which in and of itself, in my opinion, is an absolute shame. It's a nightmare, but it's a fact, which means you can't only rely on things you hear that are open. As soon as they tell you to fill out an app and send the paperwork, you should do it. Just make sure that your paperwork matches has the words describing throughout the resume that fit that. But you're still only running, you're not playing the full game. The full game is everyone you know, everyone you've hung out with, every person you've ever worked with, anyone you've stayed in contact with at LinkedIn, anyone you play tennis with or pickleball or whatever it is you do, you need to let them know you're out and about and looking. And it's one thing I see a lot of people do is the humility of that is very, it's heavy on the heart. Gosh, I got to go and let them know I'm not working. But you need to do it. You need to utilize your connections. If you've ever been approached in your past by a headhunter, I call myself an executive search consultant. That's more what I do. Or a recruiter, it doesn't hurt to let them know you're out looking. It doesn't hurt to let them know that you're being seen. Now, why should this be something you do pretty readily? Because you got to get the ball rolling. You got to get things turning. The next thing is creating a fluid mind. So as you as you're going through this, you're going to have moments where you're really not, you're just not feeling good about yourself. This is also a fantastic time to think about what you loved about what you did and what you wished you didn't have to do. And then weigh those measurements against whether or not going exactly down the same path you went down before would be the right choice. What if you could create a little bit different dynamic for yourself? So I'll talk about that here in a second. I'm gonna stop and kind of move forward unless you have any quick thoughts for me, Franz. Okay, good. So when I mention fluid mind and thinking in terms of what has happened, well, one thing we're all reading about is AI, and that we have to compete with this thing called AI, which is, there's some truth to that right now. We're going through a very bumpy period where people are trying to figure out how they fit in. Before you get, and I'm going to conclude with a whole thing about AI, but before you let that slow you down, remember this: AI is machine learning, and you are a human, and human beings are always going to be very important. The process you need to look at now is where does your heart lie with what you do? And if there are certain components it didn't fit, but certain components it did, make sure you're focusing on roles that really touch what you loved most, because you're going to be able to sell that better. You're going to be able to be more excited about talking about those things. It doesn't mean that you don't have to do the things you don't want to do, but do some research and understand when another company you're looking at might have had a different way of doing the way you did it before, and that might be a good thing. That's something that happens all the time. That's why you need connections, people that can make an introduction. Because if you're looking at a competitor where you used to work, you are dealing with someone who's got a little bit of a predisposition of the experiences you might bring from the company you were at. So these are important processes to think about. So next, let's use this as a journey. Make a practical mindset shift here, mindset shift. That helps listeners, again, that's going to help you regain your own confidence. When this happens, you're overwhelmed, you're trying to sort through it, you've got a lot of pride that's been damaged. Take a few days, but then start to create a vision by dreaming a little bit about how you would go forward, rather than worrying about when you're going to be selected. Start working towards how to get selected. And that's staying in connection with a group of people that understand you. All right, I'm gonna stop for a minute, friends. Take a breath in case you have any questions.
No, I think so far I'm really following you and understanding this change of mindset that we need before we can really approach writing a resume. They will be seen. And I've interviewed enough people to know how important these keywords are, because nobody is sending a handwritten letter anymore, right?
Yes.
It's all computers. So you are filtering out loads of people just because of technicalities. That's a great point to remember. And this also works at high levels where you're looking for directors, CEOs, or whatever, or is it just from middle management to?
It's more middle management. The high level is going to be your network, which is really where I spend most of my time. But the problem is sometimes leaders find themselves out there with how did this happen? How did this happen? So, people like me in the retained search business, I work in almost all sectors, but I'm very deep in architecture, engineering, construction. So there are a lot of search professionals that are fairly specific markets. Make sure as a leader that you build that connection base. Almost all leaders have that network already. They just don't really know they do. They've dealt with their HR department who brought them a super candidate that they hired and has just done great work. If it means calling your HR department and saying, who was that recruiter or search executive who brought us that candidate. I'd like to introduce myself and tell them I was the one that ultimately hired them. But 9 out of 10 times, I work with the hiring manager. I'm working with, so it's the senior vice president of sales that has me looking for a vice president of sales somewhere else. So I know those people, but it's amazing how those leaders don't think about that when their back's to the wall. They need to go back to the folks that they've conversed with in our world. Because in my world, I make the introduction. I'm already introducing someone to the high level that you're trying to get through. Now, your network can do the same thing. So you can send an email, perhaps. Think of it like this. If I send an email to a C-suite or to a VP and avoid the process of just blindly sending materials, imagine how much better it is when I say, a friend, Franz, and I were speaking about me, and she recommended you and I network together. And rather than, hey, you're looking for someone, it's just network. And network with people that you've touched before or people that you have a commonality with touching. So I hope that made some sense.
So networking. And, I lived in Italy for my first 28 years and then 30 in England. And I always had the impression that only Italians really base all the success on job search on networking. So in Italy, without a recommendation, when I left in the 80s, 90s, it was impossible to get a job. You just couldn't get it. You need a recommendation. You need to be networking. You need to be a friend or relation. And then as things change, I realized it's actually working somewhere else as well. You have to know people. You have to talk to people. You have to communicate. You have to tell everyone you're looking. So networking is a skill that you develop. Maybe for some people that don't like sociality very much, and they
Right.
like the stiff upper lift, like being in England. I'm also a British citizen, so we have this kind of thing of not putting ourselves out too much. We tend to be quite humble and
Yes.
underestimate a lot, and not how do you say, play your own trumpet, or just make sure you're not shining too much, because it's not quite the British way. So while in America you will say, oh, I'm very good at this, in England you will look like, what? You can't say that.
Exactly. Associations are another great way to go. So
Right.
an IT professional hanging out with IT professionals at various, every single town, almost every night has some function going somewhere related to your specialty. These are another great place to go. So it's not the reason for the network isn't that it's the only way. It just gives you some empowerment. You feel better. It feels a lot better to talk to. I mean, I network all day. That's what I do. And then I utilize what I've learned about how I'm going to approach someone.
Yes.
Executives and leaders, or even upper management people, still need to do the same thing. They need the recruiter. They need to look at what's being posted on LinkedIn or other places. But then they also need to think of the old 6 degrees of separation. Who do you know that knows who you want to know? And work your way backwards. And 9 out of 10 times, what you think you're going to do, you end up not doing. Somebody says, this organization is looking for somebody just like you, and I think you should reach out to them. Well, can I use your name? Now, that's what we do the whole day. But in a scenario where somebody's feeling like, gosh, I'm stuck, what's going to happen to me? You got to take some initiative. And sometimes this is a good opportunity for people to look at the dream job they want to create for themselves, self-employment, owning your own company. Not a bad time to look at that either. But it depends on everyone's situation. Definitely, though, you don't want to be stuck in a corner, scared to death. You've got to look at it as, this is an opportunity for me to take a new direction. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. So in our church, we always say faith is right here and fear is right there. So it's a balance, right? Even if you're not religious, you realize if your brain doesn't believe you can achieve something, then you're right because you won't.
Exactly. And isn't that one of the hardest things to do, right? Is to tell yourself when you're down or feeling down that, I can do this. But it does start with doing, right? You know, doing it to become it. So you have to open that pathway by letting go, to go ahead and take a couple days and do your thing, but then immediately begin, what do I want to do? Do I want to do the work I just got done doing? Do I want to do some of that work? I mean, do I want to? I've always taught, I mean, the thing you sit at your desk doing all day long, you've kind of just been forced to do all of a sudden. Gosh, I would come in and do this work every day, but boy, I would go do that if I could. Well, maybe that is what you should look at. I know two professionals that were phenomenal at what they did. They did it for 20, 30, 40 years. Seriously, I don't even quite know, but I know one thing. They were highly successful, faced a lot of changes, and decided they wanted to get into the franchise business. And that's terrifying. You could lose a lot of money. You could pick the wrong one. People's tastes could change. But you also could pick a good one and done real well with it. And that's, I can't believe what they've done. That 4 or 5 years ago, they decided to jump into, I won't name it, but jump into a well-known one, and it's been highly successful, and they're growing very rapidly. And there's a reason. They brought a tremendous amount of corporate expertise from the world they came from, and they applied a lot of that. They left behind things that didn't work so well. And they both are still very hard workers. They like to work. They like to inspire. And they basically built a little mentoring empire. And it's what they're doing. They're using theirs to become they're teaching people how to become the next owners of this particular organization. And it's exciting to see that. So reflect on what you love while you're in this minutia of change, right? Because the pathway could surprise you. I'll stop. I can go on. I could spend 2 hours here. I apologize.
It's okay, but we have 10 minutes, and I would like to jump straight to the tips that you have prepared.
Okay. So takeaway, let's start with AI. Okay. Understand that we are in a very strange time, and it's causing a lot of consternation. We're in a lot of pain. We're wondering, is my job even relevant? Am I relevant? We're seeing that everywhere we turn, the news, it's everywhere. So let me take just a minute and talk about AI, and then we're going to move to the things that you can do that will help you through the process of where we're heading. AI is always going to be machine learning. In fact, I watched a video a couple of days ago, Universal Resilience with JTU, and it says why AI keeps hitting walls and AGI is a myth. Well, if you're not careful, when you go out and absorb information about AI, we're going to tend to follow and absorb where our fears are. It's going to take away everything. It's going to cause a lot of frustration in the world, which I believe it will. But at the end of the day, this particular gentleman I just mentioned, who is an AI scientist and a computer guy, said there's real simple ways to look at things. And I think you'll appreciate this, Franz. How unpredictable is a human being at any given moment in time? How quickly can they change based on a simple word, a simple process, procedure? We are a feeling, empathetic creature, or very easily affected by what goes on around us. So the beauty of AI is it'll be able to smooth those edges out. It will make our efficiencies better. It'll do things a lot better. But at what cost? There'll be a temporary cost of how do we assemble ourselves into this. So one important tip is learning the positive about AI and becoming curious about what the generation behind us, the generation right behind us and next to us and us feel. Because if you are running from it and you're terrified of it and you give off that feeling, you're hurting yourself. Technology is coming. But go back to my empathy, my heart, my little sensitivities part at the beginning of this. AI, no matter how much they say it can, it will never be able to do the heart empathy. It'll be able to fake it. It'll be able to kind of look like it does.
Right.
But it can't. A simple thing. If I hold up anything, a banana, an apple, and show it, AI can identify what it is by looking at it. But it's not going to know there's a hole on the other side of it unless it's turned. So the point I'm making here is AI will always see things in a very specific way. You put in a prompt, no matter how smart it gets, the person standing in front of you could have just found out that they've gotten a piece of bad news. They've got something tough going on. And humans, the human soul, the way we function will not be replaced by machine learning. We are too hungry for creativity. We are too hungry for change. We are too hungry for, right? I mean, think about it now and think about this. When we hear that lawyers won't be needed or surgeons won't be needed, every situation has a nuance, and that nuance is not easy, nor will we ever be able to predict even if you could predict the millions and millions and millions of things that can go wrong with a robotic surgery, with using research. We're going to amplify our power so much with AI, but we still are not going to be able to replace the reality. Can you imagine saying to your friend, I went to a concert, it was great, there were a whole bunch of computers up there and they were phenomenal, great music, right? I mean, it doesn't have originality. Originality comes with flaws, comes with genuine issues in nature. So here's where I see AI making us be, eventually, if we use it positively, eventually making us better at being more creative, better at welcoming new ideas and new thoughts, because we'll be able to run all kinds of quick algorithms and tests and things to see if it works. But it's not the end all. Humans, unless we decide we don't want to be here as a species, it's not replacing humans at all. But right now, people are seeing it and feeling it impactfully. And as a leader, you are stuck between utilizing technology advances and job changes with where we're actually going. So we shouldn't be afraid. I don't have time now. I could talk all day about that and why. But accept AI and accept the change. That's the first thing. Next, I need to really hurry here because I'm running low. So see if I can get to a little bit more to your hearts here. We are in an environment where all of us are reaching what was the relevancy of our generation. That's just what happens. Each group of leaders starts to begin to get to that section of life where, and I'm right there with you, where we went through life thinking this is how it's going to go. We're getting near the end, but we're not done yet. We still have a lot to do. But we're feeling we've been caught in this movement of they don't need me anymore. I need to get an opportunity, to find an opportunity. I can assure you, if you are a leader and you can show soul, heart, and understanding of just how insanely fast life is accelerated in the last 3 decades, but let's go ahead and just say in the last, from COVID to now, It's the inability to be able to motivate people from the intern to your present team, that you have to preface, you have to explain how you, I mean, we're trying to get some people to come back to work at the exact same time we're saying AI will make it so you can work anywhere you want. We have a lot of confusion. That's just one example. We have a lot of confusion. We've sort of lost the mentorship portion of our world right there, the center of it. So if you can get in front of a leader, so what I tell all of my candidates that I introduce to clients, how you bring together the generational communication, how we learn to work together, because like no other working generation before ours right now, we had a much slower maturation of the way people became leaders. We have people that are leading departments that have never really even participated in how you lead a human being, because they're smarter, quicker, faster. They're moving up the chain quicker. So every organization is looking for people that know how to bring people together. It's kind of ironic. We're bringing AI so we can get less. But what is everyone hungry for? The connection, the soul, how we communicate. So if you're an IT professional and that doesn't come natural, but you're a leader, you're probably better at it than you think. Play that card every time you're in a meeting. Same with sales, same with marketing, same with legal, same with doctors. Is this person somebody I can deal with all day long?
Right.
Show that card.
What if you are wanted to be the leader of a big organization? Say, for example, because of my family situation, dean in a university. That's a different way, because they use recruiting firms, but then they do want this charismatic person who's able to do fundraising and to oversee all the teaching and the curriculum and the donation and the legislators. They have to deal with a lot of stuff. Do you think that this applies to education world as well?
It does. And there's a reason. If you are trying to become the dean, my goodness, what a responsibility that is, because you've got to oversee the processes of the educational department you're overseeing and making sure they're connecting well with their students in a student population that has changed like no other. I mean, you can hardly get them to not look at their phone, and I'm being kind of funny about this, but you have to find way that, well, why I'm even here. I mean, AI is going to be smarter than me in 5 minutes. And, there's just all kinds of, there's all that. But you also, as a dean, you have to be able to, unfortunately, deal with the political nature of what goes on within a university system. And then, oh yeah, there's also all of we need to raise funds in our alumni associations. Again, the rule applies here, except you have to have the credentialing. So as long as you have the credentialing, like if you have what it takes to prove out in the case of being a dean, that portion worked through. The only thing you need to focus on is you've got your story, you show your story. Now you need to tell them how you're going to change the way we connect. If you can do that, it works for sure in the collegiate situation, because we have this evolution right now of a student body that doesn't connect very well. It's a challenge. So how do we inspire? But what I think is happening in this, in even in that world, is the hunger for touch and creativity and connection is going to be the key to being valuable as a leader.
So we learned so much here about how to survive the AI and a lot more, how to thrive by positioning yourself properly, understanding keywords and a lot of other things that you can just read the show description about it and listen again, because, James Wilkson is there for you to help. You can actually contact him and ask him questions. He can work for you as well. So that's amazing. And I always ask people, is there anything else that we have not touched on? Is there anything else to round up this and say, okay, that's the last bit and the last gem I want to leave you so that you can really go home and do something useful about your career today. And the microphone is yours again.
Right. So, Franz, honestly, I think you and I could do like 20 of these. We could come in and we'll do like a topic on each. I was a little general today with basically looking at how people feel when they're kind of caught in this. I've got to start looking for work and I'm a leader and I can't cut through the noise. And so I want to rewrap that part together. I was kind of talking briefly about the similarity between whether you're trying to become a dean of or a dean at a university system, all the way out to just being any typical corporate leader or any variety of things. You've got to find a way to not to collapse during this horrendous event. You were laid off or you found yourself looking. You got to remember that it's okay to take a day or so or whatever you need, but immediately you need to be empowered by what separates you from the journey that just got a fork in the road you're on. What do I do now? So I'm going to just real quickly impart the what do I do? It's make sure everything you have is up to date and keyword oriented. Number 2, make sure all of your network, friends, associations, anywhere you have folks that you work with, let them know what you're doing, that you're looking and trying to make a change. Number 3, evaluate where your heart is now. What did you love about what you're doing and what do you want to not do again and what do you want to take with you? Because if this is going to be your next and last move, you may as well make it something meaningful. And everybody once in a while sits back at their desk and says, I love all these things I do, but I don't really necessarily like that. Does that mean that you're going to go somewhere and not do that again? Not necessarily. You might get to go do all the things you don't like again. But evaluate with yourself if now is not a time to make a change. We have a very different economy right now than we had before that allows great ideas to take those ideas and generate something new. So but now let's move to the most important part, which is anyone in your sector like me, retained search consultant, also known as a headhunter, find us on LinkedIn. Reach back to people where hiring decisions were made that you were either directly a part of or you have friends that were part of that. So frequently in a university system or even in a large corporation as a talent acquisition team that introduces you to a candidate and you love the candidate and had not a lot of conversation with the search consultant. Go to that department and ask them who that was, because they obviously did something that you found relatable. But most of the time that did the interacting with the outside search consultant. Give them a call, message them, connect with them, tell them what's going on. So you're putting a large bridge of network out there. When you do get your opportunity to have, whether it's a written or verbal communication with anyone that you're going to interact with about an opportunity, it is time to make sure in your mind your ducks are in a row. How am I different in an ever-changing society, in an ever-changing workforce, compared what did I want to do at my company that we couldn't do, or at my university that we wouldn't do, and I would do it. Have those stories ready for you, because that passion, that's what will get you that second and third interview. Don't come in like same old. We've already, if nothing else, AI is creating at least a temporary belief that we're going to be able to do a lot of things quicker without people. No, we're not. We're just going to do things differently with people. And if you ask me, we're going to do the more important part, the soft skill, the people that can spit out an architect. I do a lot of work with architects who are crazy, interesting people. An AI tool that can make the front of my house change, I can do that in a couple of minutes. is not really going to solve what I need. I still need an architect to sign off on it, make sure that the engineering was correct. We as humans are going to become the overseers and the oversight of the things that are getting spit out at us from a machine. And that will not change, nor taste. We're fickle. What we like and don't like changes every second. If everyone's house starts looking the same? Well, they're not going to like that. If everybody's, it is an never ending workplace right now. So go back and think about, how can I tell that story? When I came up into the workforce, it was very traditional. It was the leader started out as a guy or as a woman, just like me. They didn't know anything about anything, and they were mentored and shaped and learned, and as they used to say, paid their dues and gradually worked their way up. And now they are the leaders. Today, we have about 4 generations all crammed right next to each other, that because the evolution was so rapid, so fast, that there's a struggle with that upper and upper middle management side of how do we lead people that don't want to take off their glasses and look you in the eye, or they don't sunglasses, or they, you know, or they're not, whatever it is, we still have to learn how to manage those success stories. You have to be the leader that knows how to tell that story. You have to be good at it. And if you're not good at it right now, if you're anyone listening that is still working, start getting good at being able to go cross-generational all the way top to bottom. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. If you're not that, tell people you are, and then quickly learn to be, because that's going to be a criteria that will separate you from all the other folks that want that same role.
Yes.
I hope that helps.
I think it will be, and I hope that those who are listening will take really into the stride all this stuff and think, okay, it's not the end of life. Here I am gesticulating. It just productivity is different from connection. We had to be very careful how we enter this new world. I mean, the world has changed. I remember in the 80s when we suddenly had internet. Everyone bought a computer in the 90s. I was just back from Greece. 96, 97, everyone, internet. What is this internet? How does that work?
Right.
It's a new way of living, isn't it? But we have a human connection. And as you will see in the forthcoming episode, you will see how important it is to have this connection, to actually be able to talk and relate to people and feel something that computer.
Emotional intelligence is going to become it's always been prolifically talked about and so little actually practiced, except people like me, because I get to do that. I get to really watch someone and understand how they work. Companies only get to do that for a brief period of time, and then they start working together, and that's when they find out how that culture match worked. I spend a ton of time doing culture match. That's all I do, really. And when we find ourselves as a candidate, I mean, I see the craziest things. People think that, well, I'm out now, I'm not going to let them rip me off, so they become even more crazy about salary or more, instead of no. Slow down. Put your ego back there. You're hurt right now, and start working with your friendships out there. Start working. There are so many people don't realize how much people help. I get referrals all the time. It doesn't always work out that the referral that I get, I can directly impact at that time, because my clients pay my fees, right? So they tell me what they want. But relationships, over 30 years deep now. So sometimes I just like doing a favor. I pick up the phone and go, this guy reached out to me. I can't really do much. Don't have enough on my desk that would fit. How's it going over there? I've talked to him maybe 4 years. It's like, oh, wow. Sure. I'll send them for no fee. Just, hey, take an interview. I'm just here to make the connection, and the reason is because I do work on retainers, so I'm going to focus on what they've retained me to do. But I get I'm fortunate enough to be able to look at the successes of others and how those successes can apply to others. So, my glory is really in celebrating their glory. And that's that passion, that's what you want that you can blend with a team that you can work with. I'm sure you turn the recorder off. If you haven't, oh my goodness, I'm laughing.
I am still recording. I just sometimes turn off my own microphone because if I have to clear my voice or if a wind bear is too strong, I don't want them
I gotcha.
to come
That's
in.
okay.
And
Good.
I had to clear because this is a really dry climate. And until you go and live in Wyoming, you don't realize what it is. Because I was in England for 30 years. So it's very
Yeah,
wet.
it's not dry in England.
It's very wet. And so I never
Yes.
had any problem. But here I have static electricity. Everything I touch, I'm terrified of touching my Wacom tablet or my
In the
Canon
winter,
camera.
especially, you get stuck every time.
It's
Yeah.
terrible. So sometimes I turn off my microphone when people are talking. So I'm like, oh my gosh, let's just cough a little bit because I'm just feeling so dry. But that's life. And I could complain the whole day, but there are good things about Wyoming. Like it's sunny for 360 days a year.
Yes. Yes.
You know that,
It's
right?
yes, a lot of fresh air. It's
Oh yeah, it will be
wonderful.
fresh. Let's say sometimes a little bit chill. It's
Yes.
minus. Just saying, you guys, But, James, it's been such a pleasure to have you over here to learn so much about the recruitment side, to really hear what I call the hiring truth, because there's so much there that is not said. And if we just rely on this gloomy media that are really recycling what is being said over and over and start thinking with this, between my two fingers, there's a brain
Yeah.
there. Let's use it even more. And remember, we are better than AI in a lot of skills. One of the big assets, if I understood well, is that empathy, the connection, the really caring about others. And especially in the medical profession, in legislative work, and you are a dean, you're a CEO. Wow, if you have that touch, you really connect with people, you're going to be way more successful than a person can just do numbers or crunch data. Is that correct? Did I learn
Absolutely.
something?
If you do numbers well, you're about to get tools that'll make you do it even faster. But if you can do numbers well and communicate what those numbers are telling you and help companies make better choices, people aren't realizing there will be a turn where these roles will just get more enhanced with the tool. But it's always going to go back to, can I get the people around me to like me and listen to me and get along with me? Above me, below me? Can I motivate?
Yeah. Can I get you guys to like me, to press like and subscribe so you can have even more of this content coming over with people like James Wilkson?
Did you? There's a commercial right now. The commercial is the person needs something, and it's going. It's a person imitating AI, giving them all this perfect information. Yeah, but no. But what about if this happens, and then it repeats the same thing again? Because people are different every 2 seconds. It's just how it is. So what we look for is need to understand I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I'm a human that can handle uncomfortable humans.
Yes, very. Well, thank you so much, James, for coming to see us. It's been a great pleasure to hear from you.
Yeah. You too. And I hope to speak with you again. All right.
Well,
Thank you so much.
We can talk offline,
Okay.
write and organize the next topic. Bearing in mind, I will be talking about how artists. So we'll talk.
Yes.
So thank you, everyone, for listening to this. And please share with your friends and a lot of people now trying to change work and change careers, go to a new field, And this could be very, very useful for a lot of people in a lot of fields. So make sure you share, you subscribe, and you press like so you get more visibility of this episode so more people can learn how to create the life that they want by using all these tools. There's a bit of mindset, a bit of business insider, there's a bit of tech, there's art therapy. There's so much that can help us.
Yes.
We are not hopeless, are we?
No.
We can do this. And I'm just here to help you. So thank you so much.
Me
and
too.
I'll see you all next week. Thanks, James.
Thank you.
Bye.